I don't enjoy hurting people. The only thing I want is be the best in the world.
From the producer of Fahrenheit 9/11 and the director of Generation Iron comes an exploration of the most controversial sport in the world.
We're all compelled to do it.
It's going to keep getting bigger.
The Hurt Business. In select movie theaters September 29th only. Tickets available at fathomevents.com.
When I saw Phil Heath enter the stage, he just looks so much more dominant. It's not just the mass, of course, it's the shape, it's the roundness, Unless somebody really new comes in, nobody's going to be able to beat him. I think he'll be able to go for 10. What do you think?
Let's put some perspective. In the era of Lee Haney, they threw Rich Gaspari at him all day long. And towards the end of Haney's reign, it was Labrada and myself, and then along came Dorian. Haney saw the writing on the wall and moved on. Retired at 31 years old. 31 years old. Mm-hmm. And on Dorian's worst day, he beat us all. Then here comes Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie continually played the mass game, and it caught up with him. Here's the difference. Is Phil is maybe 36. Mm-hmm. Dexter's going to be 47 next month. Mm-hmm. Shawn Rhoden is 40+. He just became a father. And there's really no one there. I mean, in 3 more years, we'll have a 39-year-old Phil Heath, if he's still hungry. Mm-hmm. In 3 years, he's got the tie for the record. Mm-hmm. He could be 40 years old and a 9-time Mr. Olympia champion. That's definitely plausible based on what's thrown at him, because I believe Dallas McCarver, Justin Compton, and the younger guys are still 5 years away from being on that level maturity-wise. And even then, they're going to be beneath 35 years old. So they have time. And this is what's benefited Dexter, is that he's had the benefit of longevity. Without stopping, he's watched Dorian disappear. He watched me disappear. He watched Kevin disappear. And all of those guys that were getting older, he watched us all disappear, and he's outlasted us. So I don't want to say by default Dexter is there, because he's the best thing on at 46 years old that we got. Mm-hmm. But he's 10 years older. When they turn around to the rear, it's game over. And all of those Olympians, you go back to Ronnie, Dorian, and Lee Haney, when they turned around, it was game over for most of us. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Phil Heath has that. Is Phil Heath better now than he was 2 years ago? No. And he better be very careful. But even being where he's at, where his quality isn't as good, it's still more superior than the guy that's 10 years older than him in Dexter, and Shawn Rhoden, who's got him by at least 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. And then you got to go down to Big Ramy, who's younger, but he's got 0 calves. His skin's still a little bit too thick, especially to compare with Phil Heath. And genetically, he just doesn't have the same structure. But in 5 years, Phil Heath can retire with 9 Sandows, and we could see Big Ramy as Mr. Olympia. That's very plausible. But there's a lot of contests outside that Mr. Olympia that some of these other cats can win, because Phil's not interested in any other shows. Mm-hmm. Dexter may not go to Spain. That's the rumor, that he was so disappointed in losing to Shawn Rhoden and not beating Phil Heath that he doesn't want to go and compete in Spain at the Arnold Classic, which he won a year ago, which is surprisingly, I would call it unsportsmanlike, because at the end of the day, it's a business. And he's the defending champion, and he can beat Shawn Rhoden. He was off one night when he counted the most, and Shawn snuck up and beat him. Dexter travels better than all of these bodybuilders. He improves with more shows that he has because he's so experienced, and yet he left Las Vegas one of the more dejected bodybuilders there were, and I just don't see it. I don't know why he's so disappointed.
I see. Now, Shawn, all these guys, they work very hard, of course. Phil, just like everybody else, they put on the mask. But don't you think Phil's genetics are so much more superior and pleasing to the eye of the judges? It's almost like no matter how much they work, they just can't match that.
Listen, I am with you. Because if Shawn Rhoden and Dexter Jackson are the best we have to throw at Phil can continue winning for the next 4 years and be a 9-time Mr. Olympia and retire as basically the greatest bodybuilder ever. Mm-hmm. Because if you win 9, you are the greatest. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of who you throw up against them. In the next 3 to 4 years, if nobody comes out of the woodworks, Phil's going to win by default, because as Dexter gets older, we're going to see things that just no longer are happening for him. Phil still has 4 years of changing his physique before he's even 40. And that physique will change in the next 4 years. It'll change more dramatically for Phil because it'll be maturing, and it will go on the decline for Dexter because it's an aging thing. Mm-hmm. And right now, there's a lot of wins out there still on the circuit for Dexter Jackson in 2017 Phil is not one of those guys that he's going to beat. So he needs to just kind of put that in his rear view, do like Kai Green, and go find victory somewhere else. Shawn Rhoden, on the other hand, not a whole lot of people are going to be talking about Shawn Rhoden. I was there the whole weekend, and the only time I heard about Shawn Rhoden is when I was standing next to him, and people were congratulating him. But there was a whole lot more buzz about what Dexter Jackson did a year ago than what Shawn Rhoden did this year. And it is a little bit surprising because when I was breaking Shawn down, I saw a lot of things wrong with his structure and his physique that just should not be wrong at this level of competition. And he did get overly rewarded. I think Christmas came early for him. But again, if I'm going to take Shawn out at second, then I got Dexter battling it with Big Ramy for second place. Mm-hmm. And nobody probably would have argued if Big Ramy was in second.
Mm-hmm. Did you think, like let's say 3-4 years ago, that Phil Heath can potentially be the greatest of all time?
Phil Heath's very first pro win was the Shawn Ray Classic that I promoted in Colorado. He lived there. I promoted the show 2005, I believe it was, or 6. He went out and he won my contest, and he just took off after that. Mm-hmm. I didn't think at the time I was looking at him that I was looking at Mr. Olympia. Not in my wildest dreams. And Jay Cutler had just taken out Ronnie Coleman. And Dexter Jackson was still there. And Victor Martinez was second place in 2007. I didn't think on any stretch of the imagination that Phil would be a 5-6-time Mr. Olympia back in that time. But I'll tell you what, he's done everything right. He's got a huge fan base and a lot of haters, and it comes with the territory. But as far as I'm concerned, he's represented the title very well. As good as Kai Green is, I've never saw Kai Green beating him on the Mr. Olympia day. Every one of those Mr. Olympias, I was there, and Phil was deserving of every one. So I've witnessed controversy with Lee Haney, Dorian Yates, and Ronnie Coleman, and even Jay Cutler. Not one controversial win for Phil Heath as far as I see it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, speaking of controversy, I know, Shawn, you're brutally honest, of course. You're always brutally honest. And do you ever find that to be difficult? Because I know you're friends with all these guys, obviously. You competed with them. You continue to interact with them. But then you have to be a journalist. You have to be fair to your fans, to your audience, right? Do you find it difficult and conflicting?
I don't. I got very thick skin. A lot of the guys that I criticize are people that talk about me behind my back. It's a sport of criticism. You don't get in this game with thin skin wondering what someone thinks about you. This is a visual sport of opinion, and we all have one. My voice might be louder because I'm on camera. My voice might be louder because I'm in proximity with these guys. Mm-hmm. But you got to remember, these are guys that share the same passion for the same sport. We have that commonality. We don't do birthdays together. We don't do holidays together. So there's a lot of separations from what the fans see. I go to the Mr. Olympia, I'm thrown together with almost 30 years of people from around the world that gather all the time. And I see familiar faces that I know bits and pieces about. And then we get on a plane and we go home. It's how it is with a lot of the bodybuilders. These bodybuilders, they let you know what they want you to know. Flex Wheeler, he just got married. I can't tell you the name of his wife. He got married last month. Mm-hmm. Something should stay with you. Like Kevin Lebroni was born July the 16th, 1965. Flex Wheeler, August the 23rd, 1965. But I only know what I'm interested in, and I report. And that's probably what my biggest issue with Kevin was it's such a selfish enterprise. I was fearful for his relationships with other people in the real world. Not the fans of bodybuilding, not the ones putting the weights on, not the ones bringing you your meal prep, not the ones that are telling you, you can do it. But the real people that matter the most, those are the relationships I felt that were going to suffer. I know. Because when I went to war as a professional bodybuilder, I didn't have any friends. Everyone I was competing against were the enemy. And anybody that talked bad about me, I wanted nothing to do. I put myself in a box. And guess what? I did it every single year. And it was a very lonely place to be because by the time I got done bodybuilding, I valued my friendships that I put on hold for so many years because that's all you have. The Mr. Olympia doesn't last forever. Those hangers-on, when you don't materialize the goods, they disappear. And so I'm hoping at some point in time, Kevin pops up somewhere on the radar, and he'll realize that I'm the same person. He knows I'm not going anywhere, but I know where he's at. So boxing me out, I've done that before, and I was afraid he was going to do it, and he did. It's part of the business. I never wanted to go there again when I left the stage. So Watching those guys pose wasn't something I missed. It's something I admire, something I respect, but it's not for me, man. I really did empty my cup out in 2001.
I think it was a month ago we did an interview where I asked you about Kevin Levrone, and you gave your honest opinion about his comeback. What kind of feedback were you getting about that interview?
I would say 70% was like, hey, man, you told it like it is. You know, if he's not going to listen. And I had other people say, mind your own business. And why are you a hater? And you're supposed to be his friend. So all that stuff, that element was there. But I came from a place of experience and wisdom. Kevin called me up a month later in June to say, hey, man, you know, I want to put some of this stuff behind me. A lot of negativity coming into my ears from people that don't know you and me together.